407 years ago, our fathers brought forth on this continent a new nation, conceived in liberty, and dedicated to the proportion that all men are created equal. Now we are engaged in a great civil war, testing whether that nation, or any nation so conceived, can long endure.
150 years ago, this week, Abraham Lincoln met on the battlefield at Gettysburg and dedicated the cemetery. 287 or 89 words to summarize what the purpose of the Civil War was at that point. The war was not at that point going well. There's something he says that I think is very important for us in Ogden District.
That we here highly resolve that these dead shall not have died in vain.
That this nation under God shall have a new birth of freedom.
That resonates with me 150 years later in Ogden City School District, because our work is to ensure that the 12,500 students in our district have a new birth of freedom.
407 years ago, our fathers brought forth of this continent a new nation conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal.
My school, Lincoln Elementary, is named after Abraham Lincoln.
Abraham Lincoln was a great man because he was trying to end slavery, and he thought as if every man was created equal.
Students need to know that. They need to know that they have a responsibility for making this country as great as it is, and they can do that by learning a little bit about the Gettysburg Address and to read these amazing words to maybe inspire them to realize that they have a really big role.
Abraham Lincoln gave the Gettysburg Address so all men could be treated equal.
I've taken thousands of kids to Washington, D.C. over the years, and it's always surprising to me that probably 90 to 95% of them love Gettysburg the very most.
When we were there, we went through the battle day by day. Like, we spent an entire day in Gettysburg, and then we read some quotes from people who were in the battle, and we were able to stand in the actual places where they fought and where some of them lost their lives or made a hero of themselves. And it was just really cool to know that, our country was completely changed in that battle and that we were able to stand there.
The feeling there is still back, even just a couple days after the battle had taken place, they just kind of got everything cleaned up, but there's still just the feeling there like it happened just the other day.
There's a special feeling when you're in Gettysburg. You can feel of the significance of the battle and the importance of that battle in U.S. history and in world history. And the Gettysburg Address is just a small part of that. And I think the students are always shocked by how short it is. I think they're always surprised that he didn't have more to say. But just walking around that cemetery, you kind of begin to understand why he didn't have that much to say. The feeling at the cemetery is very powerful, and he really didn't need to say very much. For the tidbit world that we live in, it's just so much easier for people to get a little snippet of something and then think that they understand. And I think it's so important, especially with Gettysburg, that we delve into it a lot more, because the more we delve into it, the more we see the significance of it.
Word choice of it enthralled me. Just the fact that there were 5 drafts and that 2 are still known, and just how many times he changed his word choice. For example, 407 years ago, score refers to something like dozen. You could have used, it's something like 20, but it doesn't matter, and just, it was more meant for the people of Gettysburg as well as the soldiers and their families.
People didn't really expect it for him to make it that short, but I think he really meant it for us today.
You almost say 407 years ago and everyone kind of knows it. It's one of the things that everyone knows without really knowing.
Us remembering the exact wording of the Gettysburg Address and monumentalizing it, it just shows that we're a country of words. We really appreciate when somebody puts something well.
Like good poetry, it's so few words can have such an impact over such a long time. And
we have the ultimate power in our government, and the Civil War kind of proved that, because it was the people fighting for what they believed the government, like where they believed the government should have a place.
Realize that these are actual people, that they went out and they were dying in the Civil War, and they had done all these important things, but in the most just basic level, they were still human beings. They're still people like you and I.
Aware of what history has caused, then we can't live life, the way we are supposed to live.
It's kind of like in that movie, Remember the Titans, where they go to Gettysburg, and the coach talks about being unified. And I really think that our country could use that principle in being unified.
50 years ago, on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial, Martin Luther King gave his I Have a Dream speech. The connection between the two is palpable for us. The Reverend King said, "We have also come to this hallowed spot to remind America of the fierce urgency of now. This is no time to engage in the luxury of cooling off or to take the tranquilizing drug of gradualism. Now is the time to make real the promise of democracy. The fierce urgency of now requires that we address every minute, every day, what can we do for these children? It is an honor to associate with the people in a district who are engaged in that work."